I'm Trisha Ben, CEO of C-Suite Network and your host of Selling Power TV on C-Suite Network, bringing you a lineup of incredible speakers and experts from Sales 3.0. Just wait and stay tuned with us. Now on Selling Power TV, Dana Therrien is the VP of Sales Performance Management Advisory Practice at Anaplan. Dana, thank you so much for joining us here. It's fantastic to have you here, and I know that you've been sharing incredible content. You have this new report out, and I'd love for you to share that with us.
So at Anaplan, we help companies really optimize their planning practices inside of the companies, and we try to connect everyone from finance to sales across the entire go-to-market function, back into product and all the way to the supply chain. And recently we did a study with McKinsey to really try to understand how companies differentiate themselves and what that can mean in terms of their overall stock performance. So we called it the Enterprise Connectedness Planning Report, and we discovered during the report that the report that companies that do well, what we call enterprise connectedness, outperform those in terms of shareholder price than the other ones that do not. So 6.1% higher in shareholder price over those companies that have poor planning practices. And the way that we measure it is the enterprise connectedness and decision-making excellence.
Decision-making excellence. Now, this is, if we could talk about a holy grail, this is the holy grail of any company's success. I'd love for you to share more of what those insights were and how we can be making better decisions in our businesses.
So when we start to think about corporate planning, we start to overcomplicate it. So if you bring it down to your own self as an individual, how do you measure the own quality of your own decisions? It's really about how quickly you're able to make decisions, the quality of those decisions, and what the outcomes are. And when we interviewed these over 500 companies, we discovered that the companies that are able to make decisions quicker, that the outcome is better, and also the quality of them as measured by the overall shareholder price and also by the amount of revenue that they drive, they're the ones that outperform, which is kind of intuitive, right?
So it is, which makes it sound like it could be simple, and it's not. Anybody who's been part of the leadership of even a startup, let alone full enterprise-sized organization, knows that is not an easy walk. Sometimes it could sound like an easy talk, but not an easy walk. So what are those criteria that you think really deliver that quality of decision making, and what are some of those things that really stand out where this is a massive differentiator?
Yeah, the enterprise connectedness really measured the decision making ability horizontally across the organization, vertically from top to bottom, and then also giving you the ability to bring information in from outside the company. So when you have decision making excellence and enterprise connectedness, those are the two big factors that were there. What makes it difficult inside of corporations and not so much with an individual, as an individual or even with a family, you have a limited number of people and information that you have, so you can rely on that. In a massive organization that spans the globe, it's very difficult to assimilate all this information from all these places that it's stored inside the company, analyze it, put it in the hands of the individuals who need to understand what's happening, and get them to make decisions that are connected to other decisions that are being made inside the company as well. And like a really good example of that might be in the sales organization, if you're trying to set sales targets, well, you also need to have the ability to deliver on those sales targets once they get sold. So you need to ensure that the staffing plan through capacity and workforce planning is prepared, and also that your supply chain can handle whatever it is that you're going to sell. And you'd be surprised by the number of silos that exist inside of companies. I'm sure you're aware of it. So the sales organization might have one plan that's disconnected from the supply chain, and the supply chain's totally unprepared. So those companies that are able to connect all those, and of course they use Anaplan to do it, are the ones that are performing so much better in the market than those that do not.
So the language that you're speaking for any of us who had leadership responsibilities within enterprise-sized organizations, you can feel the war wounds and body blows just to talk about the topic. So I would love for you to share an example of what's an organization that you've worked with, at Anaplan, where you could take what wasn't connecting, what wasn't aligned, and actually see the results in terms of how that delivered against the shareholder value, against the profitability of the organization.
When you start to look at sales, I think that the greatest test of whether a sales organization is doing a good job at planning or not is their ability to deliver territories, quotas, and compensation plans on the first day of the fiscal year. And maybe that's a little bit aggressive, but at least at sales kickoff. So if your salespeople are not leaving sales kickoff with their territories, quotas, and a compensation plan that they understand, then they're totally distracted. And every day that transpires from that day forward until they actually receive that information is a day that's wasted. And you can see it in first quarter results. And once you lose that first quarter in a SaaS-based business, you miss your revenue target for the entire year. So we help thousands of companies achieve that example of delivering territories, quotas, and compensation plans on time. It seems like that should be easy to do, but you start planning 6 months in advance of that. And there are all kinds of individuals involved in that planning process, from the CFO of the company to the CEO of the company to all those other people that I mentioned.
Right.
And having been a career sales and revenue operations professional, it's tough to keep those people on task, to get them to make the decisions when they need to make it, because there's all kinds of downstream effects that need to be incorporated.
Right. Planning isn't making money today.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes. And we're trying to get them to plan at the time that they're trying to deliver on the results of the current fiscal year, and then think about the board meeting that's coming up, and then also decide how many people they want to hire. There's a lot of pressure on executives. And if I could encourage them to do anything, is to really understand that there's a timing that needs to be adhered to when they're making their decisions. And it's okay if it's not 100% right, because it's never going to be 100% right. Well, takes courage.
So courage. And as you're walking through that, and I know from just our conversation, you have a mindset piece to your approach, and certainly the roles that you've held and responsibilities that you have in terms of your client base. Yeah. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you look at that, because good decision making is not just in process; it's also in here.
Yeah. So I have conversations with a lot of revenue operations professionals, and we talk about having the executives adhere to these timelines, and they never do. And I've sort of given up on that personally, and I think a lot of people have. So the solution is to have a planning platform that's in place, that's dynamic, and it gives you the ability to remodel decisions that are being made, or new factors that are being brought in, so that you can continue to keep those executives confident in the decisions that they're making. So I guess it's adhering to imperfection in the planning process, and giving the ability to be agile and still keep that speed, and then deliver on the quality at the end. Because every sales rep wants to know that you've put due diligence into setting their quota. To them, it's very personal.
It is the most personal thing, isn't it? Yes. Essentially, in their role.
Yeah, and we work with a major CRM company that everyone probably knows, and they're using us now, and they delivered 22,000 quotas on time this year. And so that included all their direct sellers, that included all their overlays, and it was done on a global scale. And it was one of the first times that they were ever able to do that.
Now, we're here at this event at Sales 3.0, and we're learning from each other. One thing is absolutely true, and it's been clear in every conversation, every talk that's been had, is that we're all learners, despite our incredible level of expertise in different areas. You've studied Taoism extensively, and I'd love for you just to share a little bit about how you set your success with that training that you have.
Well, that secret got out when I was having a conversation with Gerhard, preparing for this conference and talking about what we were going to talk about. He started quoting Dr. Wayne Dwyer. And Wayne Dwyer is one of the more prominent Taoist, I'll call him students, maybe even a philosopher of the 20th century. And that's how I shared with him that I ended up studying Taoism for 20 some odd years with a Taoist master in Boston. And I just found Eastern philosophy to be incredibly insightful. And I think many executives have read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Some of them have read the Tao Te Ching. Many of them have ascribed to this Taoist philosophy and understanding the importance of it in decision-making. And that's what gravitated me towards it. And I went to this person saying, I really want to understand Taoist philosophy. He said, you can't unless you study Kung Fu, unless you study meditation, unless you study Qigong. And I just ended up devoting like 17 years of my life to doing it 6 days a week. And my wife was the same for sticking with me as I went through that process. And I'm still connected to that person today.
I'm sure that's delivered back on itself a million times over, though.
Well, just if clarity and contentment is delivery, then absolutely. It's made me a happier person, I would say.
That I'm sure many would argue is part of your incredible superpower.
Maybe it also helped me, one of my major weaknesses, which is patience. I'm a very impatient person.
Yes.
And it taught me how to sit back and relax, let certain events transpire and see how they end, and then, insert myself if I need to.
I'm so grateful you shared that, because at the end of the day, there's nothing more reactive than the sales function, right? Cybersecurity, the first thing they'll say is your sales team will absolutely be the one that clicks on a cybersecurity attack. Yeah. No question, it's not their fault, because they're trained. That's what they do. They click. Right. Yeah, the power of the lessons that we learn. I asked my father one time, he grew up on a farm, how did you get up every day and do the chores and never ever complain, those kinds of things? And he said, you just put one foot in front of the other and you enjoy that step. And just the simplest things can be so powerful.
One of the most famous Taoist quotes out there from the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu is, the journey of 1,000 steps starts with a single. Yeah. 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And it sounds like your father adhered to that. Like, look, just get up and show up every single day.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have to ask you, what would be your reason no one should ever miss Sales 3.0?
Well, just the opportunity to be around a legend like Gerhard, of course. Somebody shared with me what his age was the other day. I'm not going to divulge it here. I'm just incredibly impressed. And speaking of your father, Gerhard's a guy that just gets up, shows up, and does it every single day. And I don't think he's ever going to stop. I think he'll stop when he's done. Mm-hmm. And then also the opportunity to network with all the individuals that are here. And then some of the fantastic presentations that we've seen, your CEO or your founder the other day, I was just...
Yeah, I still get to be the CEO, but founder and chair, but definitely.
I was just so incredibly impressed with his presentation and some of the personal relationships that he has and some of his perspective on that, and just a brutal, sheer honesty. I loved it. It was
transparency, authenticity, getting stuff done, right?
Yes.
I have to say, Dana, thank you so much for joining us on Selling Power TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And that's a wrap. I'm Trisha Ben, CEO of C-Suite Network, your host of Selling Power TV. What an incredible set of conversations with the world's best experts in sales at Sales 3.0 with Selling Power.